Hey, this is Russ. I was thinking, what is the number one thing I hear or read as the biggest complaint people have about their e-bikes? Okay. Now, I'm not talking about people saying, I don't like riding my e-bike because people call me out and they tell me that I'm cheating. I'm not talking about that. Okay, have you had that too? Okay, we've had videos about this topic before, but has anyone called you a cheater? I've been called a cheater a number of times. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if you own an e-bike, okay? What do you think would be the number one thing people say they don't like about their e-bike? And thinking back on it and looking through comments and various online forums, you know what the number one thing I think it is? This bike is too big for me. Have you been there? I know I have, okay? Okay. Between a 20-inch wheel bike and a 26-inch wheel bike, think quickly, which one do you want? I think a lot of people would say, I want the 26-inch bike, right? I want that bigger bike. And then they get the bigger bike and they find out it's too big for them, okay? Now you may say, okay, Russ, you're 5'10", you're kind of a big guy. You should be able to fit the 26-inch bikes. No, not all of them. I have one from Area 13. They gave me their Blackbird bike. Yeah, he sent it down to me, and I had an option. I could take the 24-inch wheel bike or the 26-inch wheel bike. So which one do you think I took? I took the 26-inch bike, and the reason is because I said, well, all of my other fat tire bikes are 26-inch wheel bikes. I fit all those, and give me the 26. I emailed Kyle at Area 13 before he sent it. I says, give me the 24. Then I went back and I said, no, give me the 26. And then as the time goes by, I'm waiting for it. I'm thinking, did I make a mistake? Is that bike going to be too big for me? Because I'm watching some of these other people who have the Blackbird, and they were saying that they're pretty big bikes. I go, nah, I should be fine, right? Well, slightly bigger than is right for me. Yeah, very slight, but it is slightly bigger than is right for me. Now, I can ride that bike. Usually when I hop off the bike and I kind of straddle it, I can't straddle it straight up and down. I have to lean the bike a little bit to one side when I do this. Otherwise, I'm going to hit the top bar. Yeah. So I kept thinking about, okay, had I gotten to 24, would I have been okay? Probably would have, because that top bar is not quite as high. But I kept thinking, the 26 makes sense because all my other tires are 26. If I have a problem with the tire, I can just swap out, with my stock of tires, right? So I said I don't want to stock another size. I don't want to stock like a 24 and then have a whole bunch of other 26-inch size tires when I need to start swapping out tires. So I opted for 26, but I could actually say that bike is slightly taller than I probably should have. My inseam is about 30.5 inches, which brings it right up to the edge of the acceptable range. I kind of figured, well, I have shoes on and all that stuff. It should be a little higher. Yeah, I mean, I work well with it, but I got to tilt it a little bit when I hop off of the bike, okay? So, but when I do that, I'm fine, okay? Now, I kept thinking about other people. A lot of women, for instance, who are usually, well, I shouldn't say usually, oftentimes shorter than we are, maybe. Not always. I mean, we have some tall women too. But a lot of them say that the bikes came in too tall, too big for them. They couldn't handle it. They have to sell off their bike. I kind of feel bad when I read that because I feel like they've wasted some money because, I mean, when you sell off a bike, you're not going to get what you paid for it, right? It's going to be lowered because now it's used and, usually the warranty doesn't go along with it. So the value drops a little bit. And then they end up with maybe a 20-inch wheel bike or maybe another brand's version of that 26-inch wheel bike. So I keep thinking, is it smarter then to just buy the 20-inch wheel bikes if you're a certain height? And I kind of think maybe it is. I know a lot of times people think, I don't want this. Even my own wife, she says, when I ride that Rad Mini Step Through 2, I feel like I'm riding a kid's bike. Okay, I think the reason she thinks that is not necessarily the 20-inch wheel, but a lot of these foldable bikes have very high handlebar stems, Yeah, they kind of stick way up. So she says the bike looks really small then, and then now I feel like I'm too big for the bike. But in reality, she fits well on that bike. It's just that the style of the bike makes it look like like it's a kid's bike because it's way down there, right? So I know what if when I ride that bike and try to ride it, I look like I'm on a kid's bike because I'm a lot bigger and then I'm taller too. But then I look at the current Ocelot Pro, the Magicycle Ocelot Pro, and when she's riding that, she looks pretty good on it. Yeah. So and that's a 20-inch wheel bike. So I don't think the wheel size is really the issue. It's just how the frames are made and maybe how maybe the handlebar stem, it doesn't stick up quite as high. See what they do on this bike is they rather than a tall stem, they use a shorter stem, but then they have like the BMX style bike handlebars, which kind of they kind of curve up, right? They kind of curve upwards, and when that happens, it makes the bike look like it's properly sized for you. Okay, but if you don't do that, then the only alternative, I'm looking at it right now, it's off to the side here. The only other way to get it that high would be have a higher handlebar stem, like the Rad Mini, step through two. So so my whole point on this whole thing is don't buy a large bike simply because you think you can fit it if you're a certain height. Okay, so where's that height breakdown? Now, if you go based on manufacturers, I don't even trust the manufacturers. I mean, sometimes they'll tell you it's a certain height to a certain height. I mean, have you ever looked at some of these numbers they give? You'll say something like, if you're 5'2" through 6'4", that's a large height difference. Okay, I think when they tell me that's what this tells me. The frame is probably smaller, so a 5'2" person can fit it. But if you're 6'4", you're gonna raise that saddle seat post. That thing's gonna go way up, and then the handlebar stem is gonna go way up because they usually have an adjustment. Not usually, some of them have adjustments to go higher. That will look like a kid's bike when you're riding it. But can a 6'4" person ride that? Yeah. In that case, he's gonna say, "I think this bike is too small for me." Okay. Take a look at the specifications that the manufacturers give you. Okay. If they have a shorter range, like for instance, they say this is good for a person 5'2" through 5'6", I tend to trust that one more. Okay, or if they say this is for a person that's 5'8" through 6'4", I would trust that more than the 5'2" to the 6'4". You see what I'm saying? Okay, so you have to really kind of look at it and make a decision. Now, is it better to have a bigger wheel or a smaller wheel? Well, they say that typically the smaller wheel will have a little more torque involved, so you might actually have a little more pull on that thing, and that's good because then you can get over hills and things like that better. So actually, of all the bikes that I have, the number one fastest one going over the hill for me is that 20-inch Magicycle Ocelot Pro. Not by much, but we're talking like 0.2 miles per hour faster than the next closest competitor, which was their 26-inch wheel Magicycle commuter bike. So all I'm saying is that you have to kind of look at more than just what you think you would fit well in. You have to really seriously think, is this really the best suited for me or not? And I think it's maybe because, especially for guys, maybe we kind of think that I can fit that larger bike. Yeah, I'm a guy, I can handle that. But sometimes don't look at it that way. Sometimes it's better to choose that 20-inch wheel version instead. Yeah. So where's the cutoff? I don't know if you can generalize, but I would tend to say, this is just me, okay? This is not in general for tried and true. I'm just saying for me, I'm thinking if you're 5'6" and under, get the 20-inch wheel bike. All right, don't even bother with the 26, because then you're kind of pushing the potential issue. Okay, and if you're higher than 5'6", then okay, you might be still a little bit pushing it to trying on the 26-inch wheel, but some of the step over models, that center bar is a little lower, but in general they're pretty high up there. So where would I like to see it? I would say if you're a 26-inch wheel person, I'd like to see you at about my height, 5'10" and higher. Yeah, I think that's really the best option. Even if a manufacturer says it's 5'6", I start to think about it and say, is it really best So don't go based on the height recommendation. Go based on the standover height. Okay, take a look at their standover height. Now, some standover heights based on that top tube, that top tube sometimes slopes. Okay, sometimes they take this measurement right at where the seat post is. Well, when you hop off of a bike, you're further forward than right at the seat post. Okay, so really, if your top tube is slightly angled on that bike, now you have to start thinking, are they measuring where I actually fit when I hop off the bike? Or are they measuring to where that seat post is? Because nobody stands exactly where the seat post is. I'm looking at a picture of the Area 13 bike. There's a little scoop there. It's kind of like the older versions of the Rad Rover 5 like I have. It has the same kind of scoop there. Where you hop off, it's a little bit further forward. And so if you measure right at the saddle, that's not where you're hopping off. You're hopping off forward a little bit. And just from looking at the thing, it could raise it an inch or two. Yeah, at least where you actually end up standing. That's where you're going to get hit. All right. So take a look at the step over heights. Okay. Take a look at what they recommend and then make a good judgment call. Now, the bikes, too, are relatively heavy. Most of these bikes are heavy. And just because you get a 20-inch wheel bike doesn't mean that weight is going to be lower than you would be if you had a 26-inch wheel bike. Because some of these 20-inch wheel bikes are just as heavy as the 26, okay? If your battery is a larger battery, for instance, some batteries are 14 amp hour ratings and others go to 20. Well, that 20 amp hour battery is going to be a lot heavier, all right? Because there's a lot more battery cells in there. And that's going to add to the weight. So I think, yes, the number one thing would have to be bike is too big for me. The second thing would be the bike is too heavy for me. All right. So you have to kind of look at what's best suited. Now, people have said I would be interested in bikes that would, if it was 50 pounds and less, I might consider that. Well, they do make that. I have one. It's called the Magicycle commuter bike, right? But that is a class 1 bike. It looks like a standard road bike. Really, yeah. Like your old 10-speed bikes. Think about that. But this one has no derailleurs. It's a single speed. It's a belt drive. There's no throttle on it, okay? But it goes 20 miles an hour. So that's a lot lighter in weight because it's got a smaller motor, all right? It has no gears on it. The battery is, I think, 7 amp hours, all right? So it's a lot less. But because of the lower wattage requirement of the motor, doesn't require as much battery, so you can get away with a smaller battery in there. So they do drop in weight, but you drop in certain types of performances. Like there's no throttle there, so you have to pedal if you're going to move. If you don't pedal, you're not moving. All right. Personally, I like that when I just want to take a bike out and say I just want to take a bike for fun. And I'm going to pedal this time. I'm not going to throttle it. I'm just going to enjoy the bike as a regular bike. Yeah, that's my first choice of a bike. I mean, if I could get away with it, if that thing had, let me put my wishes on that. Even if it didn't have gears, I'm fine with that. Even if it didn't have the throttle, I'm actually okay with that too. If it had more battery, it would be better. I can only get about, what was it, about 23 miles out of that bike. Pedaling and using pedal assist level 1 and 2, I can get about 23 miles. I need more mileage, right? If I can have a 14 amp hour battery in there somehow and still keep the weight down, I think it would. I think the weight is like 43 pounds on that bike with the battery in there. If they had a 20 amp hour version of that exact same bike and it brought the weight to say 50, 52 pounds, I'm okay with that. That would be an ideal bike for just to enjoy riding as a regular bike for me. And that is not a small bike either, okay? The step over on that thing is pretty high up there too. You need a certain amount of clearance for it. So there's a lot of factors in deciding, the proper sizing for you. But again, most of the manufacturers, not all, most of them, it's a one size fit all. I think Aventon has bikes that you can pick the size of the frame. I kind of wish that more manufacturers would give that option, but I understand why they don't, because that's more inventory, right? I mean, they have enough issues with color. If they stocked 3 colors, and everyone buys one of the 3 colors, then they have 2 extra colors that don't move as fast, right? Add frame sizes to that on top of colors. Think about the problems for manufacturer in that sense. That's why they make it the way they make it. But yeah, you have to kind of look at it and say, can I fit this bike properly? Okay, don't make the mistake of buying the bike because you think you want it. Think carefully, do I fit it? If I fit it right, then get it. If you don't, if you're on the edge of things, start thinking maybe you might have to go for the slightly smaller frame size. Now, you kind of wish that sometimes you can try these bikes out. There's not always a local place you can try it at, because a lot of these bikes now are, they're sold through the internet and it comes straight from the manufacturer. They totally bypass retail outlets. A lot of bikes are being sold that way. Yeah, I read an article recently where they were saying that some of the big name bicycle companies are falling so far behind in e-bikes to all these other companies now that you would have never thought that. Big companies, I'm talking about companies like Trek and Raleigh and some of the larger brands. You would think, okay, they should sell a lot of e-bikes. Well, those bikes are kind of expensive from these name brands. So a lot of people buy, brands that maybe you've never heard of before. I mean, you may have never heard of Magicycle before. Maybe you never heard of Rad Power Bikes before. Now, Rad, of course, is probably the #1 sold e-bike in the United States. You probably heard of them. But again, if you compare them to like a Trek, yeah, they don't compare. Okay. Think about the longevity of how long Trek has been around compared to how long Rad has been around. You would tend to think Trek would sell much better than Rad, but no, they don't. Not in e-bikes, okay? And that's only because they are more expensive bikes and people go for less expensive bikes. Now, let's get into one more topic real quick and we'll call it a day, all right? I also thought about, people who say that, bikes under $2,000 are junk, okay? I've seen some YouTubers who've come outright and says, these manufacturers sending me junky bikes. I don't want any more of these junky bikes. Well, first off, let me say this. That guy doesn't get that bike because they just send it to him. He approves them to send it to them. So for him to come out and say that, these manufacturers are sending me lousy bikes to review and I don't like these bikes and stuff, I think that's ridiculous because he kind of knows what's coming to him, all right? And so then I kept thinking, let's go one step further. If he says that he doesn't like all these junky bikes that are coming in, all right, then are all these bikes really that bad? And I would say no. I have a bike that's what was it, about $1,100 from Engwe with 2 batteries. Is that a junky bike? No, it isn't. I like the bike. It doesn't do everything I wanted to do. It doesn't climb hills as well as some other bikes. But as a standard everyday riding bike, works fine. All right. So does it have the best components? No. But does it work? Yes. But not everyone's willing to spend $4,000 on a bike. Okay. But they might be willing to spend $1,100 for a bike. So there's merit for bikes like that. So when I saw this one video, and I won't mention who said this, but it kind of got to me. I kind of said, like, then why are you accepting these bikes to do these reviews for? You know what's coming to you. I mean, did you take them in just because you wanted a bike so that you can ridicule the bike? And that makes no sense to me. Yeah. And like I said, lower price bikes, there are definite merits to it. And that's why they exist. Okay. And if you look as a whole, a lot of these other brand and manufacturers that sell in the, let's just say under $2,000 ranges, they well outsell a lot of the name brands as a grouping. That's what I'm saying. Not each individual brand, but as a group, they sell a lot better than the name brands at this point because they're more out there. All right. Anyways, that's about it. I'm rambling off now. But anyway, I just wanted to make you think a little bit. Put a comment below of what your experience has been with your bike. Is it too big for you? What made you make the decision for that size or that type of bike? Put those comments in the comments below. Hey, if you liked the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'll talk to you guys next time. Oh, and have a good, happy holiday. Talk to you guys later.